Hello. Our next section today in our circle unit is we are going to actually learn how to write the equation of the circle. So we're going to write the equation of a circle, and we're also going to do a little bit of graphing on a coordinate plane. So write and graph equations of circles. So we're going to go through not only what the equation of a circle is, we are also going to derive it based on Pythagorean theorem and distance formula, since we know those formulas. So the first thing I have written is we're going to talk about the equation of a circle if it is centered right at the origin. And then we're also going to derive what if the circle is not at the origin, so not centered at the origin. So what I want you to see on this picture here is I have a coordinate plane. Okay, that's the center of the circle. It's also the origin of the coordinate plane. And so I want you to notice that XY is on the circle. It is a point on the circle itself. And so the radius has also been drawn. Of course, that's the distance between the center and the circle itself. So if this is the ordered pair XY, it's X units on the X-axis and it's Y units on the Y-axis, so therefore it's XY. And notice this nice little triangle has been drawn. So our very first equation is, let's just plug that into Pythagorean theorem. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it will read x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And that's our first equation. So if we have a equation centered at the origin, this is the equation. Now, or if we have a circle centered at the origin, now r squared is going to be a value. So if the radius was 4, then I would have a 16 here because I would do 4 times 4. All right. Not centered at the origin. So not centered at the origin, what I want you to see, again, center, we're going to call it h comma k. I don't know if you can read that on the video, but look at it on your piece of paper. The point on the circle itself is xy, and I have another radius. So if you look at this, I'm on a coordinate plane. R is represented as the distance between these 2 points. And so if I wanted to calculate the distance between 2 points, think about what formula you would use. We would use distance formula. So what I want to do is I want to think of distance formula. So I'm going to start here by saying D equals, and let's actually write down the distance formula. So it's going to be the square root of x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 that quantity squared. So let's call x and y our x2, y2. Let's call h and k x1 and y1. So let's plug in. Now I already know that D is the radius. I already know that it's r. So r equals, so x2 is x, x1 is h. So I'm going to have x minus h, and then quantity squared, plus y2 is the letter y, y1 is k. So I'm going to have y minus k quantity squared. And then think algebra. I want to get rid of this side, taking the square root of it. So the opposite of taking the square root is to square something. So I can come through here. If I come through and I put parentheses and I square the whole thing, that'll make the square root symbol go away. What I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other. So what I end up having is r squared equals, now the square root and the value squared cancels out. So I'm left with parentheses x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. Okay, and then normally we switch it around. So normally it's written like this. Normally it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So I'm going to circle this. I'm also going to circle this one, but I'm going to talk about how really these are the same thing. Well, I'm going to say actually the top one is the same as the bottom. So this is called, or this is considered the standard equation of a circle. Standard equation of a circle. Okay. Now, if you think about standard form of a linear, the ax plus by equals c. We have a standard equation of a circle. We had a, when you learned about quadratics and parabolas in Algebra 1, standard form of a parabola was ax squared plus bx plus c. So every type of a picture or a graph has a standard form. All right, now I also want you to see how, or actually let me add a little bit more to it. So when you look at this, of course r is probably more obvious, that's the radius. X and k, not x, excuse me, h and k represent the center of the circle. Now, what if the center is the origin, 0, 0? So notice if I plug a 0 in here, x minus 0 is just x, and I'm left with x squared. Plug a 0 in for k, y minus 0 is just y squared is y squared. So this formula is no different than this one. It's just taken one step further and the zeros are plugged in. So if you don't want to remember two formulas, you really can just remember this one, and then whatever the origin is, if the origin is the center, we're just going to then plug in 0, 0. Okay, so let's start there. This is what I want you to most remember. Now, if you want to switch between the two, that's great. But you have to know the standard equation because we have to know about the plugging in the center. All right, example 1, write the equation of the circle shown. So two ways to do this. In order to write an equation of a circle, I need two things. I need the center and I need the radius. So I'm going to add a note up here. Need center, need radius. So my center is right there. Now my radius is the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. So I can go like this if I wanted to. So my radius I can tell is 2 units. My center is 0, 0. Now if I want to, if I recognize, okay, that I can use this formula, then we can go straight here. So if I do that, then I can write my equation to be x squared plus y squared equals, now r was 2, but the formula says to square it. So I need to actually square that. So the equation will be x squared plus y squared equals 4. Now let's say I use the standard equation. I'm still going to get this as my answer. So if I go to plug in 0, 0 as the center, I'm going to have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 2 squared. And then again, x minus 0 is just x, which leaves me with x squared. Y minus 0 is just y, and then there's my 4. All right, so either way, you'll get to your answer. So it just kind of depends. Do you want to just always go to this one, and then you don't have to worry about like knowing the other one? I'd almost call the first one kind of like equation part A, because it is all based on the original equation. Okay, let's look at the next one, and then I'll have you look at the two at the bottom. Write the standard equation of a circle with a center of 2, 0, radius of 3.3. So I would recommend you write the standard equation out. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, so of course my radius is r. Your center is h comma k. All right, so 2 is h, k is 0. So when I go to plug that in, I'm going to have x minus, now I'm going to plug in 2 for h squared, plus y minus 0 is your k, equals, now your r is 3.3, but the formula is to square it. So I can't leave it just as 3.3 squared. I actually want to write that out. So I can do a little bit of condensing over here. Can't do anything with the front. It's going to remain as x minus 2 squared. But y minus 0 squared can be just written as y squared. And then 3.3 squared is 10.89. So that is your equation of a circle. Okay, I want you to pause. I'd like you to do 1 and 2 at the bottom. You're going to do the same thing we just did in example 2. Write your standard equation. All right, the first one is x squared plus y squared equals 7.84. So make sure you do 2.8 squared. All right, number 2, x minus -3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Now, double negative I'm going to turn into plus. So it's really x plus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 25. So I want you to notice before we go on, because the standard equation, actually I'll use right here, because the standard equation is in the form of x minus the center, y minus the center, it looks like we're switching the sign. So like when I look at this equation, if I see a -2 in the formula, my center is actually at +2. Okay, same thing down here. My center I know was at -3, 4, but if you look at the equation, it's almost like the sign switched, and that's because the formula has a minus in it, or has a negative. So x plus 3, but the center was -3. So you're going to need to go from plugging the center in and then taking the equation and removing the center to kind of go backwards. Okay, let me stop this video here, and I will finish the rest of the notes in video number 2.